Okay, this is Friday, 22nd of January, and today we're looking at finishing writing our story, which we started yesterday. So firstly, just quickly, could you add any missing speech punctuation to these sentences? So if you're year 3, we're just looking at speech marks, maybe some capital letters. Year 4, you might be able to spot some other kind of speech punctuation, some commas or exclamation marks that you need to add in. So just pause the video, have a go at that. Okay, so hopefully you've rewritten those sentences and you've added in this speech punctuation. So what we should have here is these are the answers. So you should have speech marks around wake up and an exclamation mark there, shouted Linda, a comma before the next speech marks, and then the train is almost here. I've put an exclamation mark there before those last speech marks. You could put a full stop or a comma, but both of them will be fine. Then you've got the weather reporter said, comma, speech marks. It needs a capital letter there because it's the start of what he or she is saying. There is a fair chance of snow and ice, and then that full stop was already there, and then you've got speech marks. Speech marks around the cows are on the move, exclaimed the farmer, and then you've got exclamation mark after move there. And then the last one, why, comma, then you've got ask the teacher, comma, are all the footballs flat, and speech marks around are all the footballs flat. And your question mark comes, if you notice, at the end of that sentence, because the teacher's asking why are all the footballs flat. That's the question, so that's where your question mark comes. The question mark doesn't come after why, because that question isn't finished yet. That's the end of the question there. So hopefully you've got all of those, and certainly if you're year 3, all of the speech marks should be in the right places there. So have a go at correcting those if you haven't got them in the right places. Okay, so this is what we're looking at today. Where did we get between our stories? So we've done, hopefully you've done that first section there. So you showed that boy's character. You showed he's at home. He's dreaming of doing exciting things. You've done that. You're on to that sort of second section. You may have finished that second section. So the monster could be chasing him right now, or maybe you're still doing that kind of build up of like, you can hear him, he's getting closer and closer. Either way, the main thing we're going to be looking at is of these sections today. So you've got where he escapes. So wherever he escapes to, and he meets this strange group of people, and that's when you're gonna have your dialogue, and then it's your choice of ending. So that's what we're focusing on today. You may need to just finish off that last chase sequence if you haven't got that far. So you might actually just finish that off, and then you've got him escaping, meeting these strange people. Again, it might not be a tree in yours. It might be somewhere else he escapes to. And then you've got your own choice of endings. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I think the main tricky parts of this probably are, how do I go from action to escaping? So how do you go from that kind of intense scene where he's being chased and he's running away and he's jumping over stuff and then suddenly he's escaped and it's all quiet again? Like, how do you change to that? And how do you introduce who he meets? How do you go from him sort of sitting there in the tree on his own or wherever he is, and then suddenly there's all these people? Like, how do we do that? So I'm going to look at both of those. So I'm just going to have a go. So this is, let's say, the end of my chase sequence. So let's say I've got poor Jimmy feel the hot breath of the beast on his back as he ran. So I've got, if you remember yesterday, I had poor Jimmy in a cave. So I think he's going to find this little sort of hole in the floor that he can squeeze down. The monster can't follow him down. So I've got this whole chase sequence. So he's getting really, really close. I've done all the running away and everything like that. So how does he get from here into where he escapes? Well, I think the first thing we're going to have is he suddenly sees this opening, I think. So let's have suddenly just a few meters ahead of him. So we're going to make it quite a short distance because he's going to get there quickly. Just a few meters ahead of him, poor Jimmy saw a, it's going to be like a hole in the floor or something, like a, could I just say a hole in the floor, a hole in the ground. He saw a small round hole in the ground that he was certain he could squeeze through. So like that. So suddenly, I think he was certain he could squeeze through. Full stop. So what's going to happen now? He's going to be he's going to run towards it. So he might maybe look again, like really quickly over his shoulder, just to check, like he's got enough time to squeeze through the hole before the monster, maybe. So looking back over his shoulder, and that'll be a comma because that's frontal adverbial. So looking back over his shoulder, he saw the, so he's not going to see the beast, is he? He's going to see like the smoke. He saw the, like, it's just like loads of, I'm going to say like orange smoke. So what's it going to look like? He saw he can't say he saw loads of orange smoke. He saw the wall. It's like a wall, I think. He saw the wall of orange smoke approaching quickly. Looking back over his shoulder, he saw the wall of orange smoke approaching quickly, but he maybe had just enough time to slip through the hole before it, and I want to include, like, I want to show what the danger is. I want to have that, like, if it's in a movie, like, you know, where they just escape by like a fraction of a second, slip through the hole before it burnt him to a crisp. So now I'm going to have what's going to happen. How's he going to squeeze through the hole? So maybe he, how could he get through? So maybe I have a feeling like he's holding his breath or something, like he's trying to squeeze through. Maybe just his heart racing, maybe just that. So I want to show like how hard he's been running. His heart racing. He just reached the hole so it's really, really close, a split second or a millisecond, a split second before the monster. And he slid down into a, what might he be? He doesn't want to be in like a tiny little hole. He wants to be in like he slid down into a wide open cave, make it seem like quite comfortable in there. He slid down into a wide open cave. And then I've got to have this feeling of like the monster above not being able to follow him. So above him, comma, he heard when I see like the monster's annoyed, isn't he? So the monster's going to be like, the frustrated. He heard the frustrated. This is a better word for that. Frustrated. Is the angry, or maybe just angry actually. Above him, he heard the angry roars of the monster. I said the monster there as well. I'll put the beast. So it's not repeating myself. Above him, he heard the angry roars of the beast stamping around the hole, comma, but it couldn't fit through. So that's it. So now I've got that. So the main things are, you do your running bit, and then he suddenly sees where he can get to. He has a quick check over his shoulder. And he just about gets there a split second before, and then you've got the monster sort of stamping around, not being able to get him. So that's your escape kind of completed. The next bit, how do we go to meeting the people? Well, we could have something that started like it seemed that he was safe from the monster at the moment. That kind of puts the monster away. So now we've got, well, how do we meet the people? We can't just have suddenly loads of people appeared. But I think we want to start with a strange feeling. So maybe all of a sudden, comma, that's frontal adverbial, poor Jimmy had the strange feeling that either that he wasn't alone, or that he was being watched, or that there was someone next to him. I think that he wasn't alone. because I think he was being watched, suggests that these people he's going to meet aren't very friendly, but maybe just not being alone suggests a bit more friendly. All of a sudden, poor Jimmy had the strange feeling that he wasn't alone. Full stop. He looked behind him and saw, what could he see first? I'm just going to go straight in and saw a couple of, I'm going to use the word outlandish. It means kind of like strange looking and, as I say, looking like it doesn't come from this world or this land. I kind of like that word. He looked behind him and saw a couple of outlandish, words that mean outlandish are things like peculiar, bizarre, strange, and saw a couple of outlandish figures, no more than 2 feet high. There you go. So there's some sort of like gnomes that are living in this cave. So I've gone from it seemed he was safe from monsters at the moment. All of a sudden, poor Jim had the strange feeling that he wasn't alone. He looked behind him and saw a couple of outlandish figures, no more than 2 feet high. Let's have them not talk straight away. So I have, for a few moments, he stared at them in silence before I'm going to have, he remembered that his mother said it was rude to stare, because I still think he's going to remember his manners at this point. He looked behind him, saw a couple of outlandish figures no more than 2 feet high. For a few moments, he stared at them in silence before he remembered that his mother said it was rude to stare. His mother had said it was rude to stare. Then he's going to say something, so he's going to be a bit nervous and say, then he's going to say, hello, question mark, because like as in he's not quite sure whether they can speak or not. He said, and I'm going to say nervously, because he's quite nervous. And there we go. There we started our dialogue, and you can start your dialogue with the creatures just like that. So it seemed he was safe from the monster, so take the monster out of the story for now. And then you've got all of a sudden he has a strange feeling, wasn't alone or he's being watched. Then he sees these figures, whatever they look like, and then we start our dialogue. So that's how I do that. Okay, so the last thing to think about is just about your ending then. So you may have a great idea for an ending. I'm sure you do, but if you didn't, here's a few things I came up with which you might want to use. And as I say, you can just pause the video on these, use these, and then you're free to go just to continue writing your story, really. So possible endings. How about the beast turns out to be pretty small? Remember, he hasn't actually seen it yet. Maybe his mum just comes, pushes it out of the way and tells him not to be so naughty. And it's this little kind of tiny beast that he shouldn't have been scared of in the first place. Maybe he defeats the beast, like in the min pins, into tricking it into getting stuck somewhere or falling off a cliff or eating a poisonous tree or falling in a lake, like something like that. Maybe he befriends the monster. It turns out it's actually just lonely or hungry, and it just needs normal food. It doesn't actually need to eat little boys. It just needs like a sandwich or something, or a friend or something like that. A nice ending like that. You could have. It turns out it's his daydream, and he's actually still staring out of the window. So it could go right back. This is all what he's thinking about might happen in the forest, and it goes back to him. He's actually just still staring out the window, but then maybe have him slipping out into the forest again. That's your last sentence, because it almost like brings the story around in a loop. Or maybe, this would be tricky to write, maybe the monster was actually trying to save him from the people who he meets. Maybe actually the monster chasing was actually trying to save him from the whoever it is that he meets. That's quite tricky to write, but maybe you want to have a go at those. But they're the endings that you might want to have a go at or do your own. So yeah, that's it. Off you go. I'll look forward to seeing some of these stories.